After 4 long years of DLC flowing into Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, the roster's finally complete with over 100 different characters to choose from, at least depending on what you count as a separate fighter anyway, so no matter who you are, there should be someone for you. And if you're a good boy like me, then you're going to want to choose the character who has the biggest chance of getting you into heaven, because that is something they're going to be checking for up at the pearly gates. Although, if you're already playing the game from the comfort of your own personal hell, then maybe you'll want to choose someone with a little more of a nasty side. Nothing wrong with that, I'm not one to judge. After all, I'm one of the good guys. But with there being so many different characters to choose from, it can be a bit daunting to figure out which fighter's values represent you the most, which is why I've decided to lend a helping hand out of the kindness of my ass. How am I gonna do that, you ask? Well, after watching a bunch of videos from WickedBinge where they rank characters from TV shows from good to evil, I just kind of figured,
I'll just rip it off. I can do what I want.
So that's right, I'm gonna rank every last playable character from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate from the most righteous all the way down to the purest of evil. Trust me, when I say every playable character, I literally mean every playable character, so that means that Echo Fighters, alternates, and even team members are all gonna be judged separately. So sit back in your Sensei Ricky's lawn chair and let's get right to it, because we've got a lot to cover here. Palutena. Alright, so the hardest part about making this video is figuring out who to put towards the top, cause after all, Nintendo heroes are usually squeaky clean characters who almost never do anything wrong, so you really gotta nitpick to find any dirt. Lady Palutena, however, is one character who I thought was a pretty easy choice to call the purest on the Smash roster, given that she's literally a goddess. Not just any goddess, mind you, but the goddess of friggin' light and the rightful ruler of Angel Land, which is pretty much Nintendo's way of saying heaven without getting a cease and desist from Jesus. Palutena does lead a war against the underworld, and war is kind of a rude thing, I guess, but I mean, what do you want her to do, surrender and let all of existence be tortured? The absolute worst Palutena does is heckle Pit from time to time, but it's always in good fun, and he seems to enjoy it, so all in all, you really can't do any better than Lady Palutena. Kirby. Okay, so I know that Kirby seems like he's a little bit out of left field to put this high on the list. After all, he did used to be impulsive, start fights relatively easy, and he even falsely accused King Dedede of stealing his cake in Kirby's Squeak Squad. However, considering that Kirby was originally created by the ancient evil entity known as Nightmare and discarded into space for refusing to follow his orders, I'd say that having a short fuse a long time ago and not giving a dick like King Dedede the benefit of the doubt being your worst defenses is actually a miracle. I mean, serial killers usually blame all their mischief on their dads drinking too much of Grandpa's cough medicine, but to be created for evil by the most evil thing in existence and then just say, nah, I'm gonna save the universe a bunch of times and be an all-around playful ball of fun, I can't help but consider Kirby to be one of the purest characters on the entire roster. You might argue that his eating habits would qualify him as a glutton, which could be considered a sin depending on who you ask, but I mean, come on, look at him. You don't even know what he's supposed to be, so where do you get the nerve to try and tell him when he's full? Man, it's not like he ever gains weight, so if Kirby says he's still hungry after eating 1,000 hired goons, then damn it, I believe him. The fact that he'd rather hang out and eat cake with his friends and conquer the universe is good enough for me. Pit. Just because Kirby was born for evil and ended up being good, that doesn't mean we can take credit away from Pit just for being born in third base in the good department, what with him being an angel. After all, let's never forget that Satan started off as an angel before he turned into quite the rapscallion. The reason why I placed Pit under Kirby, though, is because despite being an angel, he still ended up having a dark side that the Mirror of Truth was able to use to create Dark Pit. But as it turns out, even his dark side's not all that bad, as we'll talk more about later, and Pit was not only willing to sacrifice himself to save his dark counterpart, but he also gave him the cute little nickname Patu while he was at it. The 2 in his name should be spelled with the same letters as the number 2, but I'm not gonna dock points for a missed opportunity, because the localization teams are the ones that are going to hell for that one. As for regular Pit, though, he's completely loyal to Palutena, which could make him a simp, but his loyalty really is solely for the sake of helping others. And by others, I mean literally everyone who exists, because if the underworld wins the war, then let me tell you right now, it's gonna be Hell Week all rolled up into one night up in here. Chic. After Link pulled the Master Sword and disappeared for 7 years in Ocarina at a time, Princess Zelda was in a little bit of a pickle. So, spoiler alert for a game that's well over 20 years old, Princess Zelda disguised herself as Chic while she trained with Impa, hoping that she could help Link beat Ganon whenever he returned. Despite her entire kingdom turn into Frigg, she still managed to retain a pure heart and help Link whoop Ganon's candy ass. She didn't turn emo or make excuses or anything like that. She was just like, well, that all sucked, but here, take some light arrows while I shoot my pure light beam or whatever at this evil butt dumpling. So yeah, if you ask me, I'd say that Chic's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Hero Solo from Dragon Quest IV. Okay, so the heroes from Dragon Quest are pretty tough to judge since they're all mainly controlled by the player, but still though, most of them do have their own personalities regardless of what you make them do. And in my opinion, Solo in particular's got a few noteworthy characteristics that I think make him to be quite the hero. Much like Chic, he also dealt with quite a bit of tragedy when his entire village was massacred as a child, yet he still grew up to be such a good person that the other characters in the game wish their kids turned out to be more like him. Just like all the other Dragon Quest heroes, he's brave, loyal, reliable, won't shy away from his duties when the world's at stake, and you know what? I think it's pretty impressive that he ended up being so pure after dealing with all that tragedy. But who knows though, maybe I'd rank him lower if they gave him more to say in the game, I don't know. Zelda. Zelda from Smash Ultimate's the one from A Link Between Worlds and not Ocarina of Time like Chic, so they are two completely different characters. This Zelda in particular stood up to Yuga to protect her kingdom and got turned into a painting for her troubles, and then after Link rescues her, she helps him fight Ganon and Princess Hilda to save Hyrule once and for, well, not for all, because there's like 80 games, but you see what I'm getting at. Just like Chic, Zelda's got a pure heart too, but even though she went through quite a bit of tragedy and turmoil herself, it just doesn't compare to what Chic's been through. I'm sure Zelda would have remained pure if she had to go through the exact same trials and tribulations, but the fact is that she just never had the chance to prove herself, so for all we know, she would have ended up being the leader of a local punk rock and/or roll band if she switched places with Zelda from Ocarina of Time. Probably not, but, I mean, we can't say for sure. Toon Link, Young Link, and Link in that order. Okay, so first off, I don't think any of the Links from the history of Zelda are anything less than pure, except for the one from the CDI games, I guess. But out of the three that are in Smash Bros, I think Toon Link's probably the most pure, even if it is only by an ass hair, because I mean, look at him. He's a fun-loving cartoon character, what more do you want? And if that's not enough to convince you, then just look at how sweet his grandma is. Anybody raised by this woman's gotta be the purest of all their reincarnations. Then obviously Young Link could be the next in the line of purity, because he's still a friggin' kid who doesn't even know the meaning of the word shit-ass yet. I know you might think it's a bit of a cop-out to just give the cartoon the edge for being slightly more animated, but despite Toon Link and Young Link being around the same age in Smash, the less cartoon incarnation was still an adult at one point in Ocarina of Time. And during that time, I'm sure he probably had an impure thought or two when Zelda accidentally touched his...
Beak.
And I'm not saying that regular adult Link's a bad guy by any means, though. It's just that he's not quite as good as his younger counterparts by default. Sora. Well, with him being a Disney protagonist and all that, it's pretty much a given that this guy right here landed higher up in the good guy rankings, but even so, Sora's a bit of a can of worms when it comes to just how good he is. On one hand, he saved the universe over a dozen times and can be forgiving, benevolent, and endearing. Despite being a normal boy, he managed to become one of the strongest Keyblade wielders in history in spite of his physical shortcomings, and if you ask me, I think it's much more impressive that he was willing to step it up to do so much good rather than it all just coming naturally to him. But on the other hand, though, Sora is permanently on Santa's naughty list for not believing in him a long time ago after Riku told him the guy was just a myth. And I know that momentarily not believing in Santa Claus a long time ago might seem like it's way too strict of a reason for one to be on the naughty list, especially for someone who saved so many lives and thwarted so much evil. But I mean, Santa Claus is a legitimate saint, so it doesn't really matter what you or I think, because it is his full-time job to determine what's good and evil. I mean, it literally takes him 364 days just to compile a new list every year, so I think old Saint Nick knows what he's talking about. And honestly, for that reason, I actually almost put Sora at the top of the evil portion of this list, but at the end of the day, naughty doesn't necessarily mean evil. Man, hell, the only reason we're all here in the first place is because our parents decided to get naughty at some point, so it's not like Sora's going to hell or anything like that, he's just not getting any presents for Christmas. Like, ever again. But even though Sora's far from evil, the lad is still definitely imperfect. He's quick to anger, childish, a bit selfish early on, and arrogant about his abilities. Despite having some flaws though, most of these negative qualities do go away by the later games, and it's not like Sora would ever consider hurting others on purpose, so he is definitely a good guy. In fact, he's definitely one of the better ones. The flaws make him a far more interesting character, but this isn't about who the coolest characters are, and even so, Sora's still pretty high up without having to resort to being a goody two-shoes, so I'd say that's pretty impressive. He's just not the purest is all. Hero 8. Despite being raised as a commoner rather than a royal chosen one like some of the other heroes, the hero from Dragon Quest VIII still turned out to be quite chivalrous and stoic, and he's really just a good person because he wants to be. Hell, he's even immune to curses too, so what more do you want? Duck Hunt Duck. Even though the dog's an accomplice in this poor bird's assassination attempts, that's still not enough to stop this duck from putting those differences aside to make a new friend and have some fun. This level of trust probably goes more into the stupid category, but I mean, we're talking about a friggin' duck, so what do you expect? Besides, I guess the dog is just following orders, so if the human player doesn't have a light gun, then I guess the dog can't lure the duck into gunfire anyway. But even if there was a light gun lying around, it probably wouldn't work on modern TVs anyway, so I think their issues are probably in the past, and that's mostly due to the duck being the bigger man. Or, you know, man duck, whatever. And sure, the duck befriending this one dog's not exactly an act of kindness that'd make the world as much of a better place compared to some of the other things a lot of other characters on the Smash roster do, but you know what? To this duck, the dog is the whole world, and I think that's beautiful, especially considering how heated their past was. Hero Luminary. The Luminary from Dragon Quest XI lived a sheltered life with a lot of fears and insecurities, but despite this, everything in his world ended up alright by the end of his adventure, and I can't really think of much else bad to say about this character. And that's mainly because he doesn't do a whole lot of talking in the game, but still though, he's a Dragon Quest hero, so I'd imagine that he's not really thinking about anything too dastardly. Hero Erdrick. This name most commonly refers to the hero from Dragon Quest III, which was a prequel to 1 and 2, so really, he's kind of the OG hero of the entire franchise. Even more so than the other heroes, he doesn't have much of an individual personality outside of the player's choices, but at the end of the day, he is the main character from a Dragon Quest game, so we do know that he's got a strong sense of justice. And because he has the least personality out of all the heroes, we don't even know a sliver of anything that'd make him less of a good guy. While the hero status certainly earns him a spot higher up in the good guy rankings, the blank parts of his resume probably means that he's hiding something, so I've got to at least put him on the bottom of all the characters that I consider to be pure-hearted. Yoshi. As you might expect, there's really not a whole lot of dirt you could dig up on Yoshi. He's playful and childlike, but he's still responsible enough to hold a job saving babies, plus he constantly puts up with Mario's animal abuse for the greater good. But even though he's willing to allow himself to be sacrificed by Mario, he's still too big of a coward den or a haunted house, even if it means Mario's more likely to fail. To be fair, Yoshi did eventually work up the courage to confront haunted houses and crafted worlds, so if he's the one in charge of saving the day as opposed to helping somebody else do their job, then I guess he will do it. But even though there's absolutely nothing wrong with having boundaries, abandoning Mario and haunted houses does make Yoshi a little bit less pure, regardless of how many babies he may have saved. Lucas. Lucas used to be a bit of a scaredy cat, but without spoiling the very beginning of a game that came out all the way back in 2006, he did have to go through a pretty traumatic experience at a young age. But despite the survivor's guilt, he still turned out to be a truly good lad who wants to help others, and he's really come a long way from his days of being a crybaby. I don't think he'd ever do anything evil, but the one thing that kept me from considering him to be one of the pure-hearted characters at the very top of the good guy hierarchy is really just the fact that he lives in a somewhat modern era. And I'm sorry, but there's just no way that someone could be completely pure these days, especially with all the psychological issues Lucas has got to be dealing with. Simon Belmont. Simon Belmont's ruthless as all hell, so you might think that his attack now, ask questions later policy would have landed him a spot closer to the evil side. I mean, he did try to kill Alucard just because his whip told him to, but he had a pretty good reason to trust his whip, plus he did apologize. And besides, if Simon dies, then who's gonna be around to stop all the vampires? So honestly, being ruthless is kind of the only way to fight the supernatural if all he got's a whip with no telekinetic abilities. Trust me, I know how hard it can be from experience, and it's friggin' scary, so I think we should all be grateful that Simon's passion for stopping Dracula is fueled so strongly by the kindness of his heart, even if he is a bit ruthless. Ness. Putting Ness under Lucas was a tough call to make, since Ness did have a much less tragic upbringing, but even though Lucas is more likely to turn evil than Ness if you put a gun up my ass and made me pick one, I'd still bet against that ever happening. But even though Ness might be the more stable of the two mother characters, I kind of feel like Lucas had a lot more to overcome. I mean, it kind of felt like Ness had everything under control till the end of the game, so for all we know, he might have cracked under the pressure if he had to deal with the same stuff Lucas had to. Suppose it is possible that Ness might have actually handled it better than Lucas, but the fact is that Lucas endured a hell of a lot more and turned out great, whereas Ness faced challenges that he never really had any doubts about. But I mean, he did still overcome some impressive hurdles to save the world, all while being a nice and kind boy from beginning to end, which is why he's still upper class in the good department. Fox McCloud. According to Star Fox Adventures, Fox is pure of heart, but even though he doesn't have an ounce of evil in his ass, I wouldn't exactly consider him to be pure. Don't get me wrong though, he's damn close to it. He's completely loyal to his team and the entire Korean Empire in general. I don't doubt for a second that he'd die to save his people if he had to, but even though he's a better guy than most, he can still be a bit cocky from time to time and disregard rules and regulations. If being a rebel's for the greater good, you can't exactly call him a bad person as long as his methods work, which they do, but the key factor working against Fox is that he's been known to complain about his pay from time to time, and I'm sorry, but I don't consider that to be very pure. He is still a good dude, though. Ike. Alright, so at his core, Ike's probably an all-around nicer guy than Fox. In fact, you could probably say the exact same thing about most of the other Fire Emblem characters, too. However, the reason why I think Fox is automatically more of a good guy is because if his men are in danger, he's got no problem with pulling them out of battle, whereas Ike and the rest of the Fire Emblem characters, on the other hand, well, they're a little bit too willing to let their allies permanently die in battle. And sure, the reason why they're all fighting in the first place may be justified, and I'm sure to a Fire Emblem protagonist, dying for a cause is an honor that they wouldn't want to ever rob from one of their allies, but I don't know. I just think it's nicer to let them retreat so they could live to watch Seinfeld reruns, or wait, Fire Emblem games take place way back in the olden days, so I guess they'd be watching Happy Days or something like that. Either way, a great leader would pull his troops out if they were about to die. I know that ideally nobody dies in the perfect ending to a Fire Emblem game with a skilled player, but none of Fox's boys die unless you get a friggin' game over, so I'm not letting Fire Emblem protagonists off so easy. Aside from allowing allies to die though, Ike in particular is who I consider to be the most good of all the Fire Emblem characters, even though it was by a razor-thin margin given how all of them pretty much have the same motivations and morals. One thing in particular that sets Ike above the rest, though, is that he seems to be the only character in the game who wasn't a complete racist towards the Lagaz people, and he actually wanted there to be peace between them and the humans. Not that I don't think the other Fire Emblem characters wouldn't have done the same thing, but since they never had a chance to prove it, Ike gets the points here. But even if I'm forgetting an example or two from the other Fire Emblem games where the protagonists do something similar, Ike also stayed humble in Radiant Dawn on the Wii after liberating Crimea and Dian, despite being on top of the world. Much like Russell Crowe, he absolutely loves to fight, but he still wants there to be peace, and even though he does kill a lot of people who aren't necessarily evil, it is always for the greater good. And oh yeah, thanks to the Black Knight, he also had to overcome a bit of tragedy too, and he still didn't turn out to be a jerk-ass, so that always helps. Lucina. Lucina may not have much of a sense of humor, but she did come from a dark future and traveled through friggin' time to save her dad and the entire world, so if that doesn't make her a good person, then I don't know what to tell you. She never commands people to die like the main protagonists from Fire Emblem do, but if it were up to her, then I can't imagine that she wouldn't do the exact same thing. And even if she could do a better job at commanding an entire army, I think it'd actually make it a little bit worse that she'd just sit around and not speak up when Robin orders everybody to their death. But in all seriousness, she probably just feels like she doesn't have any better ideas and decides to let Robin just do his thing. All in all, not a bad person by any means, but she could lighten up a little bit more. Corinne. As far as kindness is concerned, this is probably the nicest Fire Emblem character in Smash. He or she, depending on which you choose, are good at befriending people and recruiting new allies, plus even animals think they're pretty cool too. The one downside to me though is that they might be a little too quick to trust others, which would normally make one a better person, but not when it could potentially endanger the entire group. In the end, everything worked out, I guess, so I guess you could say that Corinne's a good judge of character more so than a gullible dork. Crom. Okay, so I know you're seeing a pattern here, but like I said, Fire Emblem characters all have similar goals and methods to accomplish those goals, so obviously they're gonna be ranked pretty close to each other. Like, I'm not gonna shuffle the deck just to avoid having too many characters from the same franchise back to back, so if you wanna get mad, then go ahead and blame Sakurai, regardless of whether or not he's responsible for all these Fire Emblem characters in the first place. Back to Crom though, he may have grown up with a silver spoon in his ass, but despite the royalty, he's actually extraordinarily humble and his heart's always in the right place. After his sister sacrifices her life to save him, Crom's overcome with rage and vows to murder every last Plaguean in the land, and if it weren't for his friends, he would have definitely succumbed to the hint of evil inside of him. But even though Crom did need help from his friends, he still managed to keep it all together, which is a lot more than I could say for most people. I'm looking at you, Bob. Roy. Like the other Fire Emblem characters, Roy prefers to live in peace, but that won't stop him from killing a bunch of people to obtain it. Not much new here, except in Roy's case, he'll actually fight and kill his old allies if he has to, and even though the sacrifices are definitely worth it in the end given the context of the game, it is still a little dark. But to be fair, even though it can be necessary, Roy does at least feel that sacrificing people to win's a hollow victory. But I mean, he will still do it though, so I gotta hold it against him. Marth. I put Marth on the lower end of the Fire Emblem characters, mainly because he's too nice, oddly enough. And you might think that having a big enough heart to trust sketchy people would be more along the lines of stupid rather than evil. I mean, after all, Crom in the Duck Hunt Duck trusted some pretty sketchy people too, but the difference is that Marth's naiveness almost got him killed not once, not 3 times, but twice. Although I suppose he still never actually died, and his knack for recruiting people definitely did a lot more good than bad in the long run, but, like, had Marth been killed by one of these traitors, then it would have been all over for the entire kingdom. I don't know about you, but I think that risking the lives of innocent people just so you don't feel like a dick's actually being even more of a dick. At least ask more questions, Marth, come on. Terry Bogard. This full-grown man may look like the textbook definition of the word tough where you misspell it T-U-F-F, but he's still just as much of a white meat babyface as any protagonist could ever hope to be. He doesn't bear any ill will towards anyone unless they're completely irredeemable, so as long as you don't kill his foster dad, or even worse, make a phony phone call to him, then you should be alright. Unfortunately for Geese Howard, though, he decided to kill Terry's foster dad so much that he actually died, which turned Terry into quite the vengeful man. Not an evil guy by any means, although for that brief second where Terry thought that the phone call delivering the bad news was a prank, he definitely did have some evil thoughts brewing.
Your foster parents are dead.
Thankfully, it wasn't very long before Terry found out the call was legit, though. Otherwise, he would have probably ended up the main villain for Fatal Fury. While being vengeful may be bad though, it does still make the world a better place to get rid of killers, so this is another case of no harm, no foul, I suppose. Terry Bogard passes the good guy test of flying colors, but it is still really weird that he hates prank calls as much as he does, so you know what? I'm gonna personally fly to his hometown of Hong Kong, Connecticut to get to the bottom of this.
So Terry, why do you get so mad at phony phone calls?
I don't like people playing on my phone.
Well, alright, so there you have it.
Mega Man. In a lot of ways, you could probably argue that Mega Man's actually the purest character on the Smash roster, given that he's a robot who was created for good, but like, so was my VCR, and that thing's gonna be lucky if it even gets into purgatory. But even though my VCR has provided countless hours of entertainment, it's only saved the world about 1 to 2 times at most, whereas Mega Man, on the other hand, saved the world more times than I care to Google real quick.
There's at least 12 though, or maybe 13 if you count soccer.
Regardless of all the good that Mega Man's done though, I can only give him so much credit, seeing as how it is kinda his fault that the world's in danger as often as it is. The reason for that's because he always seems to spare Dr. Wily's life at the end of every game, which is why I put so many killers higher up, because at least they're not risking the fate of the world for the sake of being polite. And this might just be me, but being brave's really not all that impressive if you're a machine, because as we all know, machines don't experience fear. And if you're doubting that, then you should probably take a look at the fights my VCR gets into sometimes. That thing never backs down. Regardless of being incapable of fear though, when you look at the big picture, Mega Man does in fact make the world a better place. Pyra. This is ultimately a nice and sweet girl who just wants peace amongst all the blades and drivers. One way she wants to achieve this goal, though, is to ask the architect to kill her since she can't do it herself, what with her being a blade and all.
I cannot self-terminate. You must lower me into the steel.
Like, I can totally respect sacrificing yourself for the greater good, but I don't know, it just kind of comes off as suicidal when it's not even Pyra's last resort, especially when she's always questioning her self-worth. Like, there's absolutely nothing evil about questioning your self-worth at all, but when you rush into battle wanting to die, then the whole part about saving people just kind of comes off as a bonus at best. Although I suppose it is way better for someone's demons to cause them to do good rather than evil. Hell, if I was ever gonna off myself, I've always had the plan to let a radioactive man bite me. That way I might at least develop superpowers so I could fight crime as Man-Man. All I know is that Pyra always choosing to cook for others and help people does make her good in the long run, just not as good as she'd appear on the surface is all. Luma. Simply put, Luma's a childlike starved thingy or whatever and just thinks Rosalina's the greatest living being ever, and Luma will even happily die to protect Rosalina from feeling the slightest bit of pain. Luna may have never actually accomplished all that much by herself, but bless her heart, she always tries her best. Isabelle. Isabelle may have never saved the universe from any type of catastrophic events or anything like that. In fact, she's never even saved anybody at all. But sometimes you don't need to be a hero to be a good person, and if she had some sort of powers or at least found herself in some sort of position to save anybody, then I don't have any doubts that she'd at least try to. What she does do, though, is provide updates and information to everybody living in whatever town she's in charge of, and she always does it with a smile on her face, no less. Simply talking to her always makes her day at least a little bit better, and yeah, I know that might not sound very impressive to everybody, but for some reason, I can't seem to pay the rent for my condo without my landlord disrespecting me to my face, and I don't think Isabelle would ever do that. Sonic. Everybody loves Sonic for good reason, but at the end of the day, he's kind of a dick. Seeing as I saved the world every time Sega's wanted to make a quick buck over the years, Sonic's pretty much got immunity from hell at this point, but still though, does he really have to rush me every time I set my controller down for a few seconds? I mean, what am I supposed to do if my pause button's broken? Just duke on the floor? Whatever, I guess. It's the least I could do after all Sonic's done for me, but let's just say that I don't think any other video game character in history would have asked me to do the same thing, not even any villains. Ken. Ken's Ryu's best friend, and their personalities are pretty similar. They're both extremely passionate about fighting, but they'll always prioritize putting bullies and tyrants in their place. However, there are two main differences between the characters, though, with the first one being that Ken's a lot more violent and aggressive than Ryu. We'll get to the other difference later on, but even though Ken does find a little bit more enjoyment out of inflicting punishment, it's only ever when bad people are the ones who are suffering, and his heart's definitely in the right place, so whatever, he's a good guy. Lucario. Okay, so as far as the Pokemon on the Smash roster are concerned, I'm just gonna assume they're all wild and judge the trainer separately, and I'm also not gonna talk about any of the Pokemon from the anime, because that's just gonna open up a whole nother can of worms. Because I mean, then I'd have to talk about cartoons from other video games, and before you know it, the Super Mario Bros. Live action movie, or preferably at least Captain Lou Albano from the Super Show. The point is that I'm sticking to the Pokemon video games for reference, and since each Pokemon's just a member of an entire species, all we really have to go on are the Pokédex entries. And according to all the entries for Lucario, these things could read other people's minds, and they'll only allow trainers to tame them if they have justice in their hearts, but if the trainer's a turd, then Lucario's gonna get stressed and refuse. It's not very polite to read other people's minds against their will, but I'm pretty sure it's just an automatic thing, so if anything, I kinda pity the damn thing, especially if it's a girl.
Man, if I could just slide a finger down the crack of that ass.
Lucarios can be a little aggressive, and if a trainer never ends up catching one, then it's not like they're gonna go out of their way to fight for the justice that the Pokédex entries claim they care about so much, so I can't give Lucario too much credit for having a good heart. But like, they do want to make the world a better place, just not by themselves, I guess, and it's not like there's a chance of them adding evil to the world, so I guess I'll chalk Lucario up as a win for the good guys. Zero Suit Samus and Samus in that order. Okay, so these are literally the exact same person, but I'll give Zero Suit Samus the edge just because it's a lot harder to fight space pirates without any armor. Trust me, I know, I played Zero Mission. Judging the character as a whole though, Samus does do a lot of good and is very compassionate, seeing as how she single-handedly volunteered to save the Luminoth race, and she even helped some innocent creatures escape from a self-destructing planet Zebus. It's a hell of a lot more than anyone's ever done for me. Despite Samus' soft side though, she is extremely vengeful when it comes to space pirates, and she only takes orders from those she respects, which I guess I trust her judgment on, but still though, there is that small chance that her attitude could be jeopardizing lives, you know? Space pirates are a huge problem, so I'm glad Samus is doing something about it, but if you took away her thirst for revenge, then you could put her a little bit higher up. Shulk. After Mekon's attack on Colony 9, Shulk decides to embark on a journey entirely based on revenge. Now, I'm sure it brings a smile to his face knowing that his vengeance happens to be helping people, but if the main reason you're doing something's revenge, then it's not really good, even if you are kind, gentle, and loyal to your friends like Shulk is. I know some of the other characters up until now had the same issues with revenge, but none so far have had quite as much hatred as Shulk. Plus, he's also been known to be oblivious to other people's feelings, and he can be pretty pessimistic sometimes too. I'm sure I'll get punched in the taco by some hardcore Xenoblade fan next time I'm out in public, but I'm not saying Shulk's a bad guy by any means, even if I do sound like I'm being a little bit harsh here. He certainly never rude to anybody on purpose, and like, I guess having a vendetta against machines isn't really hurting anybody, but still though, if hate's the reason why you're getting out of bed every morning, then it's definitely a problem you need to talk about with your therapist, or at least your dad. Mythra. We already talked about Pyra earlier, but as it turns out, she was just kind of sort of an alter ego created by Mythra that she could switch back and forth with. They pretty much have the exact same goals and motivations, except Mythra's more rude, has a short temper, and used to show little to no sympathy for others, but she did change her tune later on, so that's nice. Just not as nice as Pyra, though. Snake. I feel like a lot of people would have probably put Snake a lot lower on this list, including Snake himself.
I'm no hero. Never was. Never will be.
But like, what's he ever really done that could be considered evil? Well, why didn't you ask him yourself, Hotshot?
Have you ever killed anyone?
Yeah, but they were all bad.
This character's way too complicated to accurately describe in a format like this, but he's not rude, he's loyal to his allies, he dedicates his entire life to saving the world, even to the point where he's willing to sacrifice himself, and despite being genetically engineered by Big Boss's genes to be a ruthless killing machine, he's the only one out of his clone brothers who wasn't bitter about it, and despite his background, he still wound up becoming what I'd consider to be a great man, unlike his butthole brothers. As confirmed by Psycho Mantis' mind-reading ability, Snake definitely loves killing people, which isn't an admirable quality, and even he'd agree that using the excuse that he was made that way is a cop-out. But seeing as how he denies his love for killing up and down, that does tell me he at least feels a little bit guilty about it, and like, he did tell you himself that he doesn't kill innocent people. So yeah, Snake may not be a pure-hearted saint or anything like that, but he's definitely someone who I trust with my kids, that were never conceived because I've never had consensual sex without money involved, but, you know, if I had kids, I'd let Snake babysit them. Captain Falcon. Even though this guy probably makes enough money racing to never have to work again, he still chooses to live a dangerous life as a bounty hunter. And like, I know sometimes bounty hunters go after people who didn't do anything morally wrong, but when you take a look at Captain Falcon's enemies, I think it's a pretty safe bet that they were probably committing some pretty heinous crimes. Since old Falky doesn't have to hunt bounties, I'd say that he's got a pretty good sense of justice, otherwise why not just let Dog handle it? As good of a guy as he may be, though, he's not some kind of a righteous superhero or anything like that, so I'm not gonna give him too much credit, but at the same time, he never really does anything evil, so I've gotta give him the nod. Robin. Much like Kirby, Robin was born from evil and ended up being pretty good. The reason he was created in the first place is so that Grima would have a vessel to possess and commit all kinds of evil mischief with. Evil mischief like, oh, I don't know, murdering Crom. That's right, in an alternate future, Robin gets possessed, kills Crom, and dooms the entire world until Lucina goes back in time to change history like I mentioned earlier. It might be a little unfair to judge Robin for being possessed by an evil villain when his body was literally made to be susceptible to that very thing, but I still got my ass whooped when I told my mom that I only duked on the carpet because Sonic the Hedgehog possessed me and made me do it, so I'm not gonna let Robin use that excuse either. Although it is pretty impressive that this guy or girl, depending on which you choose, turned out to be a good person when they're not possessed. Like, I'd imagine that the Robin that's actually in Smash Bros. Isn't the same murderous one from Lucina's future, but still though, Kirby did a much better job at being born for evil and decided to turn out good in spite of fate, so tough luck, Robin. Ryu.
For a guy who loves to fight, Ryu's a true gentleman whose only goal is to travel the world and master martial arts. He doesn't actively try to be a hero, but like Ken, if he sees innocent people being bullied or tyrants doing a bunch of tyrant stuff, he'll shift his priorities and do the right thing. Because if you hurt Ryu's friends, then you hurt his pride. He's gotta be a man, he can't let it slide. But honestly, I kind of feel like doing heroic stuff as a hobby more so than a job almost makes him even more of a good guy. With that being said though, the big difference between him and Ken that I hinted at earlier though is that Ryu's got a bit of a dark side called the Satsui no Hado, or the punchy fight syndrome if you translate it from its native Polish. At least that's what my Uncle Eddie told me anyway, but then again, he used to smoke cigarettes with nicotine patches on when he didn't think anyone was looking at him, so I don't know if we could exactly trust him. He's probably right though, who cares? At any rate though, this dark aura that makes Ryu want to kill comes out whenever he gets himself into a pickle thanks to his drive to constantly improve. And if it weren't for his buds keeping him grounded, then he'd have probably turned into a dick a long time ago. Base Ryu's definitely a better person than Ken, but with all that darkness in him, I just couldn't find it in me to put him higher. Seeing as he's the face of the franchise though, I really doubt he's ever gonna actually go off the deep end. Alph. Alph won't hesitate to sacrifice the lives of countless innocent Pikmin, but he is at least doing it to collect like 60 pieces of fruit so he could save his entire planet from starving to death, so I won't exactly say that he's unjustified. Plus, he does look kinda dumb too, so maybe he really doesn't understand how awful his actions really are. The problem is that he just lets way more of his allies die than all the Fire Emblem protagonists combined is all. Much like Fire Emblem, if you're some kind of a whiz kid, you could theoretically beat the game with 0 deaths, but like nobody's ever gonna actually do that, not even the people who have done it, so I don't care. Alph's a mass murderer. A justified mass murderer, sure, but still a mass murderer nonetheless. And no, I'm not gonna be judging each individual Pikmin though, even though they are technically helping Alph and Olimar fight. The reason for that's because their name's not in the billing, so suck it. Falco. Falco's ultimately a part of Fox's team, so he's got the same good guy goals and accomplishments, with the only real difference being that Falco's kind of a dick. I know that manners shouldn't play too much of a factor when it comes to good and evil, especially when you've saved as many galaxies as Falco has. But the key that knocked Falco down a good bit more than Fox though, is that he often calls his enemies his prey, which implies that he gets off on murdering them. Although, if you're gonna be a serial killer then, I guess it's not so bad if you're only murdering evil people, kinda like Dexter. You know what, it does make Falco kinda scary though, because unlike Snake, it doesn't even seem like he feels bad about his bloodlust. Diddy Kong. This little spider monkey here seems like the kind of guy who I'd love to hang out with. He's nice, playful, carries a boombox around with him at all times, and he's always willing to put his life on the line to help his friends out. He looks for peace more often than Donkey Kong, and I know it seems like I flip-flop on whether or not mercy's a good or a bad trait in this video, but I think it's a really gray area that needs to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. But with Diddy Kong, I think not wanting to kill people is more of a good thing though, since he's mainly just endangering himself. While Diddy Kong may be a good friend to have though, his monkey ass probably doesn't care what happens to anybody who he doesn't know personally, so he's not really so much of a hero as he is a solid bud. But really, there's nothing wrong with minding your business though, as long as you're not pretending to be some kind of a hero. And to Diddy Kong's credit, he certainly doesn't pretend like he's a hero. I just don't understand why Diddy feels the need to shill for Nintendo in his own game. I mean, I already have a Nintendo console, so is that hat really necessary? Although they did promote him to the lead character in the very next game though, so I guess his plan did work out. But I don't know, I just think it's really lame and downright scummy whenever people shill for their brand so shamelessly. I mean, if it were me, I would never force my audience to have to just sit there and stare at an obvious promotion just so I could make a quick buck.
Banjo. Much like Diddy Kong, Banjo's less of a hero and more of a loyal friend and family member. He doesn't really care to save the world, and most of the help he provides for others is ultimately just to get jiggies, but while that may seem mostly selfish, he is doing it to save his sister, and I can't say that I don't respect his priorities. I'm just saying he's not really a hero is all. Byleth. Okay, so Byleth's more or less the same as all the other Fire Emblem characters, blah blah blah, you know how Fire Emblem characters act. But like, this guy or girl in particular didn't even cry when they were born, they have no emotions when they're cutting enemies down in combat, and they'll even murder their former classmates in cold blood if they just so happen to end up on the opposing side later on in the game. Still not evil, but I don't know, I don't trust him. Bayonetta. Sure, it's pretty nice to fight demons and protect humanity, and she does show genuine concern for others, but sometimes Bayonetta's been known to fight angels for fun, and even though it is kind of in a playful way, it's also pretty brutal at the same time. And trust me, I've encountered my fair share of angels throughout my life who don't exactly act like angels, and if I were as tough as Bayonetta, I'd have opened up a can of whoop-ass and sprayed it all over them too, but I can't turn a blind eye to the fact that it's probably not a nice thing to do. Not only that, but she's also pretty callous to pretty much everybody, not to mention all the hate she's got for her father, but to be fair, about 97% of all dad hate's usually pretty justified.
Hell is full of dads.
The good outweighs the bad, but Bayonetta's still far from perfect's all I'm saying. Dr. Mario.
This is literally just Mario, but since Smash insists on considering Mario as a separate person while he's on the clock as a doctor, I guess that's the only portion of the guy's life I'll judge him on here. And well, he does save a lot of people, which is nice, but at the same time, is it really appropriate to make a game out of it when people's lives are at stake? I suppose it is alright for a doctor's methods to be a bit wacky as long as they're getting the job done, but still though, no matter how many times he fails, he's not only gonna get to keep his medical license, but he won't even face any consequences either. This might just be me, but I don't think it's okay for any doctor to be immune to malpractice lawsuits, especially when they're not even taking the job seriously in the first place. You could argue that Mario doesn't need the money and that it's nice of him to help people as a hobby, but I tend to lean towards reckless and sociopathic. Either way though, he is helping people, so I can't be too hard on him, I guess. Dark Pit. You know, considering this is a physical manifestation of somebody's darkness hidden deep within them, Dark Pit's actually not a bad guy at all. I mean, he disobeys Palutena, but it's not like he ever agreed to work with Medusa.
I have been disobedient.
He's more of a neutral character who calls all the gods selfish for being at war in the first place, but in the end, he does help Pit save the day, so if anything, I kinda think that makes Dark Pit a good guy. Although Pit dies, and so does Dark Pit, so it is likely that he only helps for his own sake. But I don't know, it kinda seemed like he didn't hate being nice, and I can't think of anything evil that he's ever done, so even though he's cocky and rude, he's probably the nicest Dark counterpart of all time. He's a hell of a lot nicer than Dark Cameron, that's for sure. Kazooie. It's really nice of Kazooie to have Banjo's back by helping him rescue his sister, but other than that, she's just flat out rude, which does make the game funnier, but it definitely hurts her standing on this list. She always wants rewards for acts of kindness, she makes fun of Bottles after he dies, and honestly, the fact that Banjo even hangs out with her is why I didn't put him higher. She'd never intentionally hurt others, but Kazooie's kind of a bad influence if you think about it. Cloud. Cloud may be the protagonist of Final Fantasy VII, and by the end of his adventure, he does help and save a lot of people, but like, the very first thing we see him do is murder 2 security guards who were just doing their job, and then he goes on to blow an entire Mako reactor up, killing plenty of innocent people. Yeah, I know that Mako reactors drain the planet's life energy, so if we're talking about the fate of the world, what's committing 1 or 2 acts of terror, right? Well, if that were Cloud's motivation, then I'd definitely say that the good outweighs the evil, but he made it crystal clear that he was only doing it for the money, and I think that's kinda dark. I mean, what if some kind of a villain paid him to burn a school down, or even worse, make one of those crank calls to Terry Bogard? Seeing as I wouldn't even listen to Barrett when he tried explaining why they were blowing the Mako reactors up, he wasn't even convinced that they weren't crazy terrorists who wanted to harm people. There's a hell of a lot more to this character that I'm not gonna get into right now, but let's just say that Cloud ended up being pretty good by the end of the game, and he was always loyal to his friends, but at the end of the day, he killed innocent people for money. Min Min. Min Min's goal is to simply beat up consenting fighters so she could earn money for her family's ramen shop called the Nintendo Noodle House. Her goodness may be on a really small scale that doesn't really change the world, but it is still mostly selfless nonetheless, although she probably will inherit that ramen shop at one point. But I'd like to think that she just wanted to help her family out. Wii Fit Trainer. Wii Fit Trainer's purpose is to simply help people lose weight, which is definitely a good thing, but there was that one time she called that 10-year-old girl fat, though. I'm sure the Wii Fit Trainer didn't actually say this herself, but I mean, come on, she probably had to sign off on it. Daisy. Despite being the princess of Sarasaland, Daisy's actually a pretty simplistic person. We never see her actively setting out to help people, but then again, with the exception of Super Mario Land, her kingdom does seem to be pretty peaceful, or at the very least, security got tightened up after that one time where it wasn't. But even when evil did pose a threat there, it came from friggin' space, so if her kingdom's already peaceful then, I think it's probably a good thing that Daisy doesn't actively go on adventures looking for evil to thwart just for the sake of doing it. Instead, Daisy'd rather just play sports with her friends from the Mushroom Kingdom, and personally, I don't got a problem with that. Meta Knight. More often than not, Meta Knight's considered a villain, especially in Brawl where he's overpowered as all hell, but despite technically being a bad guy, he's got more than just a handful of good qualities with him. His main motivation for trying to conquer Dreamland by force is to end its lazy life cycle, which is certainly rude, but it's not like he wanted power or had a Frank Grimes type of jealousy at how comfortable everybody was. It was really more because he truly believed that it'd help everybody out in the long run to not have to rely on Kirby so much. He definitely should have tried taking over the correct way by winning an election or something like that, but even though he's not always fond of Kirby's childish behavior, he does still always offer him a sword in the interest of fairness whenever they fight. Plus, he also cares about his troops and even orders them to abandon a ship that's crashing so he wouldn't lose them too. In the end, they did choose to stay and fight out of loyalty, but Meta Knight did at least thank them and apologize after they were beaten. He's been more peaceful in recent years, and he does help Kirby out fairly often, but there is still a decent amount of work left to be done with this guy before we can call him pure. Jigglypuff. Pretty much every Pokédex entry talks about how this Pokemon sings to put their foes to sleep, but if the foe can't sleep, then Jigglypuff might actually run out of oxygen while singing and die. If you ask me, that's quite the pacifist thing to do. Normally, pacifism's a bad thing if it's risking the lives of others, but when Jigglypuff's only risking his own life to protect the attacker as well as himself, then I must admit that it is kinda nice. Duck Hunt Dog. Like I said earlier, the dog's just following orders by assisting his owner to kill these ducks and retrieve their corpses, and if I had to guess, then I'd wager that the purpose for hunting is population control or for food or something like that. Regardless of your views on hunting, though, the dog's just being loyal to his owner, who I'm sure he thinks is the greatest person in the world in the same way the duck views the dog. But the thing that keeps me from ranking a supposedly innocent dog higher, though, is the fact that he always laughs at its owner whenever it misses its shot. What an asshole. Luigi. Since Luigi acts as player 2 in most of Mario's games, they're pretty neck and neck as far as who's the more righteous of the two brothers. They share a lot of the same good qualities, and definitely some of the bad ones that I'll talk more about when we get to Mario. However, what gives Luigi the edge in my book is that he actually saves his brother from haunted buildings a few times, even though he was horrified the entire time he did it. And the main reason he did it was solely for the sake of helping his brother, although it was pretty lame when Luigi captured ghosts who were just minding their own business, not bothering anybody. Plus, his mean mugging during kart races that were supposed to be fun give me the chilly willies, and it's pretty crummy of Luigi to go in on Mario's ex Daisy the way that he does. But even so, I still consider him to be a better person than his brother overall. But speaking of his brother, Mario. Sure, this guy might have saved the Mushroom Kingdom like 1,000,000,000 times by now, but if Mario's such a nice guy, then why is it that he never seems to help anybody without there being a chance of scoring with a cute girl as a reward? Don't get me wrong, Mario thwarting Bowser's attempts at conquering the Mushroom Kingdom works out for everybody, regardless of why he's doing it, and I know that he doesn't want to hurt anybody, but it just seems like he only does good things so he can boink princesses, whereas Luigi at least goes on selfless adventures to help save his perverted big brother. I mean, he didn't see Leon Kennedy trying to spruce the president's daughter after saving her in Resident Evil 4, and she was the one who made a move on him.
So, after you take me back to my place, how about we do some, overtime?
Sorry.
And what about that time where Mario kidnapped Donkey Kong and tried killing his son who was desperately trying to save his father? Yeah, Luigi never did anything like that either, and I know that the original Donkey Kong was a jerk, but that guy really did have a big change once he had a son. And if DK Jr. really did grow up to be the same Donkey Kong we know today, then it's no wonder he holds a grudge against Mario. But speaking of animal abuse, though, I don't even know where to begin with Yoshi. Like I mentioned earlier, Yoshi's more than happy to help Mario for the sake of the Mushroom Kingdom, and what does he get for his efforts? Well, an ass whooping whenever Mario needs Yoshi to do his bidding, and whenever the opportunity presents itself, he'll even sacrifice the poor dinosaur just to save his own skin. For the sake of the kingdom, it is at least better if Mario survives rather than dying with Yoshi, but since Mario's the one steering Yoshi to his doom in the first place, it is kinda hard to cut him some slack. Seeing as how Mario saved so many people on assloads of different occasions, he's far from a villain, but he's definitely only thinking about himself most of the time. And sorry, but I'm not gonna give him any credit for Paper Mario's good deeds, since that seems to be a different Mario from an alternate universe from the one who's in Smash Bros. Peach. On the surface, Princess Peach is a very polite and kind person. Much like Daisy, all she really wants to do is hang out and play sports with her friends. And unlike Daisy, Peach has been known to save the day herself from time to time, so you'd think that'd automatically rank her higher by default, right? Well, here's the thing. Look, normally I'd never be the type of person who victim blames someone who's been kidnapped, but we've seen that Peach is perfectly capable of defending herself, and she kinda just stands there and lets it happen at least 23 times and counting, so I'm a little bit skeptical that there isn't a huge part of her that actually likes it. Granted, most people aren't constantly being targeted by a seemingly immortal giant turtle monster thingy or whatever, but the one thing that keeps me from giving Peach the benefit of the doubt is this one scene in the ending of Super Mario Odyssey where she makes Mario and Bowser fight for her affection. Like, if she wanted to friend-zone Mario, then that's fine, because the reality is that she doesn't owe him anything just because he saved her. But to not immediately shut Bowser down after dozens of kidnappings tells me that she likes getting kidnapped just to see people fighting over her, and that's just friggin' sick. I mean, Daisy got kidnapped one goddamn time and then immediately said, nope, that's never happening again, and to this day, it never has. And she damn sure never invites her kidnapper to Tonga to hang out and play sports with everyone like Peach does with Bowser. I mean, what kind of a sicko invites their kidnapper to hang out and play sports with everyone? Imagine how that must make Mario feel. Maybe it's rude to judge someone for having Stockholm Syndrome, but it damn sure doesn't make her a good person, I can tell you that much. Hell, I wouldn't even be surprised if Peach secretly wanted to be with Bowser but can't because of political reasons. However, if Mario were to somehow fail and Bowser became the new ruler of the Mushroom Kingdom, then I don't think anyone would blame Peach for going along with committing bestiality. I mean, she didn't exactly deny it when Bowser Jr. called her Mama in Super Mario Sunshine, and it would explain why we haven't seen Bowser Jr. till 2002. But seeing as how she did help Mario beat Bowser in Super Mario World, and then again in Super Mario 3D World, I don't honestly believe that she wants Mario to die, but it's definitely something to think about. Oh well, at least she's polite, I guess. I'm sure I'll get a lot of heat for putting so many Mario characters this low on the list, but to me, they're kind of like the characters from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. They may be the protagonists, but if you look at their actions, they've got way more in common with sociopaths than they do heroes. Except for Daisy, though. She's pretty neutral, I guess. Richter. Much like his ancestor Simon, he's kind to his allies and won't hesitate to kill vampires, but even though Richter has saved the day numerous times, he actually helped resurrect Dracula after letting Shaft brainwash him, essentially because he was bored. The exact quote from Richter is, "Dracula rises once a century, one chance for each Belmont to shine and then we're finished. Forgotten. If I bring him back now, the battle can last for eternity." I mean, come on, get a life, you loser. Joker. In the very beginning of Persona 5, Joker saves a girl from being assaulted without thinking about the consequences, so I would still consider him to be more of a hero for being so selfless, but the guy is still willing to snitch on his friends, betrayal of humanity, and, well, what else is it you'd like to do, Joker?
2 chicks at the same time, man.
Oh yeah, that's right, how could I forget? He's willing to cheat on 10 girls all at the same time. Obviously, Joker will only do these bad things if the actual player controlling him's a complete jerk, but, like, he is still thinking about doing it all, and he will do it if you tell him to, so doesn't that mean that he kind of wants to do it all deep down? Plus, changing people's hearts is essentially hypnotizing them against their will, but since it does end up helping people, I'll give that one the pass. All I'm saying is that the work of the Phantom Thieves isn't really all that much better than Meta Knight trying to force Dreamland to be less lazy. At least Meta Knight won't cheat in 10 different relationships. Rob.
Hit up, Rob!
The robotic operating buddy does help defuse dynamite and gyromite, but only really because he was programmed to. Still nice, but then again, so is the guy who works at the dam and decides not to flood the entire town. They're both just doing their job, and at the end of the day, I don't think anyone cares if this one guy in gyromite dies anyway, so if anything, the guy at the dam's probably a little nicer. Ivysaur. Every Pokédex entry for Ivysaur pretty much focuses on how the bulb on his head's used to store sunlight, most likely because they were too lazy to think of more details for a Pokemon in its middle form, so I guess Ivysaur's only real goal is to simply grow into a better version of itself. And while that can be interpreted as selfish if you're nitpicking, I don't really think there's anything wrong with that as long as it's not harming anybody else. Pichu. Essentially a baby Pikachu, Pichu pretty much just has trouble creating and retaining electricity, and he'll even cry about it every now and then. Sounds pretty innocent, but it will shock humans, which is a little more violent than Jigglypuff, who simply puts others asleep. Pikachu. The Pikachu in the anime may be a hero, but according to the Pokédex entries in the actual games, they've been known to electrocute others not just when they feel threatened, which would be understandable, but also whenever they're angry, and I think that makes them malicious creatures. They do help fellow Pikachus out who are in weakened states, but it's specifically stated that this only happens occasionally. Ultimately, Pikachus just want to live in peace and not bother anyone, but electrocuting others out of anger is still fairly rude, even though most of us would probably do it too if we could. Mr. Game & Watch. Mr. Game & Watch has had a lot of neutral jobs over the years, but being a lion tamer is one that I gotta question. If the lions are being held in captivity for the sake of protection, then that's great, but is it really necessary to hit them over the head with chairs? I mean, it'd be a hell of a lot more safe and ethical to just tranquilize them, but apparently Mr. Game & Watch has seen one too many wrestling shows and just couldn't resist the urge to use a chair. That's all well and good, but come on, man, no one needs to hear the sickening thud of a wooden chair cracking the back of a lion's skull.
Do it on a human being, you dick!
Ice Climber male and Ice Climber female in that order. The entire goal of the Ice Climbers is to simply climb a mountain and get their stolen vegetables back from a condor. The bird must have stolen them to survive, so I wouldn't classify it as an evil condor, but the Ice Climbers also need to eat too, so I wouldn't classify them as evil for trying to get their food back either. And sure, climbing a mountain's a lot more trouble than just getting more vegetables, but when someone steals your food, you gotta make an example out of them, otherwise they're just gonna keep doing it. And to make matters worse, others might try to steal from you too once word gets out that you're a pushover. And well, they never did make another Ice Climber game, so I'd say that laying the law down worked out pretty well for these two. They're both exactly even in terms of how good they are, but the only reason why I put the male a little bit higher than the female is because my neighbor Terry begged me to. Apparently he's still mad about that time he paid her for a BJ, and all she did was rub her nose on his pee-pee. Alex and Steve in that order. Even though these are default characters with literally zero personality, their smile still makes them seem like they're a little bit on the nice side. The only reason I put the female a little higher is because my neighbor Terry has no beef with either of them, so I figured why not just switch it up for this one. I mean, it could literally go either way, so whatever. Brawler, Sword Fighter, and Gunner Mii's in that order. While the Mii fighters may be mostly neutral, I still think it's clear that the Brawler's the most honorable of the three since he doesn't fight dirty with foreign objects. It'd be a completely different story if it were for the fate of the world, but since Smash Bros. Is supposed to be a friendly competition, I think using weapons is pretty dishonorable. I know other characters use weapons too, but like, they use those weapons for other purposes and are only really in Smash as more of a courtesy than anything else. But the Mii fighters on the other hand live for this, so why cheat, you know? I think the sword fighter's a better person than the gunner, because at least they've got to get up close to attack, whereas the gunner could attack from a distance. Then again, stabbing someone's a lot more brutal than shooting somebody, so it's really a toss-up, but I still think the sword fighter's a little more on the good side. Piranha Plant. I know Piranha Plant's portrayed as bad in Mario games, but much like my aforementioned neighbor Terry, they'll only try to bite you or spit poison gas at you if you try taking a shortcut through their property. So if you just leave the damn thing alone, he's not gonna try to follow you around, which is why I think he's the most neutral character in Smash. Pac-Man. Eating your enemies is pretty ruthless, but unlike Yoshi and Kirby who do it to save the day, Pac-Man's merely just a family man who's trying to defend himself while he's grabbing a bite to eat. All the enemies that Pac-Man eats are ghosts that can't really die, so he's not necessarily a murderer, just a glutton for hamster food and ghost meat. Although you do gotta question how much of a family man he really is, seeing as how his baby's mama's name is Miss Pac-Man rather than Mrs. Pac-Man. Inkling. Inklings are ultimately just a bunch of teenagers trying to have fun by spraying their bodily fluids all over public property, but in the real world, stunts like this will land your name on a certain registry and disqualify you from most jobs. Luckily in the world of Splatoon though, most people don't seem to care, but I still feel a little bit bad for the poor guy who's gotta clean all this up.
This is a public restroom. I already clean up. Who you think that clean all this stuff? I don't clean. I'm not clean.
Villager. While playing as a villager in Animal Crossing, you can't really do anything that terrible, but even if you're as nice as possible, you're still destined to abandon your entire town forever and ever until the end of time at some point, which will make all the other immortal residents very sad. Squirtle. Since they've got shells, Squirtle's DNA suggests that they're more concerned with defense than offense, so you could say that they mind their own business, but according to the Pokédex entry from Let's Go Pikachu, Squirtles apparently had prey, so they're not entirely innocent since I don't think they need to hunt for meat, which kinda makes this Pokemon somewhat of a bully. Then again, depending on who you ask, Pokemon Let's Go is not even a core game anyway, so maybe Squirtle's not so bad after all. Incineroar. Incineroar is described as violent and selfish, but apparently they've been known to help smaller Pokemon out too from time to time, so I guess that's pretty cool. Unlike Jackie Chan though, this species of Pokemon does in fact want trouble, and lots of it too, because they're constantly looking for opponents to fight, which isn't a very admirable quality to have if you ask me. Charizard. The temperature of Charizard's fire increases as it gains experience, which means that fighting's a part of its genetic makeup. In fact, the Ruby and Sapphire remakes even state that Charizard flies around looking to start fights with strong opponents. They don't pick fights with weaklings, but unlike Incineroar, Charizard does make it a point to help smaller Pokemon in need out, so I consider Charizard to be a little bit more mean. Greninja. Looking to pick fights with strong Pokemon's one thing, but Greninja likes to toy with its enemies while slicing them, and if you ask me, that's pretty much torture. They may not seek victims out, but they do still enjoy inflicting pain, so meh, that's kind of a drag. Mewtwo. This Pokemon was genetically engineered in a lab specifically for the sake of battling and to have a savage heart, so pretty much the solid snake of Pokemon. And even though their hearts are supposedly savage, I don't really see any proof of this anywhere in the actual games. He just kind of stands around in caves, apparently to conserve energy, but never actually messes with anybody, so I want to put him a little bit higher up, but just about every Pokédex entry insists that Mewtwo's bad, so maybe the developers know something that I don't, so I guess I gotta just take their word for it. Donkey Kong. Alright, so first of all, Donkey Kong's a friggin' glutton. I mean, why do you need all these bananas, bud? You can't possibly eat them all, and they're just gonna go bad in a few days. I can only imagine how many species in this habitat go extinct from him hoarding all this food. Plus, even though the original Donkey Kong who kidnapped Pauline's a very different ape, the current Donkey Kong can still be pretty villainous from time to time as well. In fact, he's actually a villain more often than he is a hero, and even when he is a hero, he's still pretty selfish, even if he does take care of his family. Little Mac. There's nothing right or wrong with being a boxer, but can anyone make a case for why it's okay to box with friggin' animals? I know Donkey Kong's strong as hell, but that doesn't mean that he can consent to a contest like boxing. And yeah, I know I just got done establishing that he's not the most honorable ape around, but when people are kidnapping his parents and forcing him to fight in underground freak shows against his will, I'm kinda starting to understand the guy, even though I still don't believe in making excuses for bad behavior. Regardless though, knock it off, Little Mac. You're already the champ. What more do you need to prove? Wario. What you see is what you get with a guy like Wario. He's greedy, gross, and hypnotizes Mario Land while Mario was out saving Princess Daisy that one time just because he was jealous. Aside from Mario though, he doesn't really ever try to kill anybody except for other villains in the Wario Land series, but even in his own game, he's pretty much just trying to raise hell and get even richer, so no matter how you look at it, Wario is a person, a dubious character for whom I feel no affinity. You know, a dick. King Dedede. To be blunt, King Dedede is a selfish and lazy king who'd rather just eat and bully others than tend to his kingly duties. He's not quite the main villain of the Kirby series, but he still makes Kirby's life hell more often than not. To be fair, most of his fights with Kirby are usually due to some sort of a misunderstanding, like Kirby attacking before Dedede can explain why he broke the Star Rod, or if he's under some kind of mind control or a spell. But even though he will help save the day from time to time if he's absolutely got to, I still wouldn't consider King Dedede to be a very good person. Pokemon Trainer. I love Pokemon games, but without sounding too much like PETA, there's just no getting around the fact that Pokemon trainers are no better than the people who force dogs and chickens to fight each other. In fact, I'd actually say if Pokemon were real, they'd be a lot worse. Like, here, Weedle, take this Fire Blast from a level 100 Charizard so I could switch from Victory Bell to Starmie without taking any damage. I know that Pokemon never actually die in battles, plus, the trainer in every game does use his Pokemon to stop other trainers from evil gangs, but for the most part, they are mainly just forcing their Pokemon to battle for glory. Like, yeah, the Pokemon do seem to want to battle, but as we saw with the Duck Hunt dog, animals will do just about anything for their owner, so the reason why most Pokemon want to battle is to make their trainers happy. And even if they genuinely do want to fight, that doesn't mean you should encourage it. I mean, if your dog gets into a fight with another dog at the park, you and the other owner don't encourage it so you can see who's the better dog owner. But the Pokemon trainer, on the other hand, thinks it's just dandy when his Pokemon inflicts pain and suffering on others, although to be fair, most of the time the other trainers really are the ones starting the fights. In fact, even when he gets an overleveled Pokemon and the trainer resists fighting, the trainer still forces it to anyway, even if they just stand there refusing to fight back. It's like, dude, I don't care if your dad abandoned you and you're just following in his footsteps to search for answers and self-worth, making your Pokemon fight others is just low. And no, it doesn't make it okay just because most of the rest of the world's doing it too. Wolf. Wolf can be somewhat polite and charismatic, but he's still willing to help Andross take over the Lilat system for money, which is even worse than Cloud blowing the Mako reactor up, because Wolf knows damn well what he's doing's evil and he just doesn't care. The only reason he did it was to have a chance to fight Fox, but endangering an entire galaxy's worth of innocent people just to prove you're a better pilot's not very nice. So in addition to Cloud's worst characteristics, you could also toss Richter's worst qualities into the pot as well, since Wolf doesn't even care one bit if his desire to fight Fox results in tyranny for an entire star system. In fact, I'd say he's pretty much a carbon copy of Majin Vegeta now that I think about it. Wolf does have a begrudging respect for Fox, and a lot of people do consider him to be more of an anti-hero than a villain, but even though they never really show him kill people, I don't believe for a second that he never has, especially out in space where he can get away with pretty much anything. Olimar. The Pokemon trainer may be bad, but at least he never lets his Pokemon die. However, Olimar, on the other hand, he has no problem with constantly sacrificing the lives of countless Pikmin. But unlike Alph, who only does it as a means to an end to save his entire home planet, Olimar's borderline genocide simply to get rich. Or die trying.
Thank you. Thank you.
Olimar's mass murder was originally committed so he could get off the planet he was stranded on and return to his home planet, which was still selfish to sacrifice or, if you're really good at the game, risk so many lives just for one person, but I could at least respect that. But then after he went back to his home planet and told his boss about all the Pikmin he encountered, they had the brilliant idea to return to the same planet to search for treasure just to make some extra scratch. I guess you could make the argument that their company was about to go out of business and that they needed the money, but maybe if they made better business decisions, they wouldn't have to murder a bunch of innocent Pikmin just to cover their asses. And just look at how hard these poor guys are trying to help. If only they knew they were just a cog in the machine.
Come to think of it, I think Pikmin 2 says a lot about our society.
The Koopalings and Bowser Jr. Seeing how the personalities of Bowser's evil children is relatively unexplored, I'll give a quick rundown for each one of them based on what we do know in the order from least to most evil. Not to be confused with the guy from Fire Emblem, Roy likes pretty things, which is why he chose the Cloud Pipe that led to him ruling the Cloud World in Super Mario Bros. 3. But in an attempt to hide his love for pretty things, he acts tough, so I kinda feel bad for him, even if he is evil. Morton's grouchy and talks a lot, but maybe if someone listened to him every now and then, he'd change his evil ways. Or maybe he'd burn an orphanage down, I don't know. Lemmy's immature and silly, which could either be fun or annoying depending on the person, and there's never an in-between. Larry's quick-tempered, and that's all the info we really have on him, but people with short fuses are usually annoying and not nice. Ludwig's the oldest and most conceited, but since he's the oldest, he's probably the least likely to change his evil ways. Wendy's a complete brat who wants everything, and even if she already has what she wants, she still wants more of it, which is a personality that literally nobody likes, including other people with the same personality. Then there's the brains of the Koopalings, Iggy, who should be smart enough to understand what he's doing is wrong, and I think that actually makes him the most evil out of the bunch. For whatever it's worth, they usually say that geniuses are more likely to be crazy and evil. No matter how evil the Koopalings may be, though, Bowser Jr. is still the most evil by default, since he's the one who's always working directly with Bowser while the other Koopalings are off doing their own thing, possibly even activities that aren't evil, like playing Boggle or something, I don't know. Not only that, but Bowser Jr. is also the one who's calling all the shots and ordering the Koopalings around. I know I should go easy on them because they're kids, but frig 'em, they're being raised for evil, and hell, they're even evil right now, so why do I gotta wait till they're 18 to call a spade a spade?
Same goes for my stepkids too, frig 'em.
As far as actual evil deeds are concerned, though, Bowser's kids pretty much just try to mess with Mario and help their dad out with that whole human trafficking thing he's been working on the past few decades. But as evil as Bowser's children may be, though, it'll be a really long time before they could reach the same lows as their father, since he was the one who put him up to it in the first place, which obviously brings us to Dad himself. Bowser. I, along with many other people, consider Bowser to be the face of video game villains. His evil-doing ways have been constantly active since the 80s thanks to all the mixed signals Peach has been sending him all these years, but in all fairness, Bowser never actually accomplishes anything too evil, and he's actually worked with Mario a few times in the past for the sake of good, oddly enough. Plus, he also grieved over Gino's body breaking down. He's not that rude to his minions in later games, and even spends plenty of time with his kids. Sure, he teaches them to do bad things, but he definitely does care for them all, so if Bowser does go to hell, then it certainly won't be because he failed as a father like most dads down there. He may not spend as much time with his 7 other kids as he does with Bowser Jr., but since they don't seem to have any daddy issues and always seem to be happy to help Bowser out, maybe they just want to have some space every now and then, and Bowser's actually giving it to him. Sounds like a pretty good dad to me, and to top it all off, he's actually a pretty good sport when he loses games and congratulates the winners. So why is he so low on the list? Well, because facts are facts, and 2 dozen kidnappings doesn't look good on anybody's record, so I mean, the guy definitely is evil, even if he is a good dad who appreciates his kids and minions. He's just never competent enough to actually succeed in any of his evil plans, but if he had his way, then the Mushroom Kingdom would probably be a pretty dark place. Rosalina. I know, she's super polite, helps Mario out, protects the cosmos, blah blah blah. She uses children as a shield so she doesn't scuff her dress up. She's friggin' evil. I mean, Bill Cosby did a lot of good things too, you know, but that doesn't mean he's not evil for all the diddling he did, so why does Rosalina get the pass? Even the mascot of video game villains, Bowser, wouldn't sacrifice his own kids. And to think her Wikipedia has the nerve to say she cares for her children diligently when she's probably one of the only women you'll find in hell for being a bad mom. And look, it'd be one thing to use child soldiers to fight off some evil space villain or something if you absolutely had to for the fate of the universe or world or town or house, whatever. But in what galaxy is it okay to use children in your custody as a shield to make up for your crappy fighting skills?
I don't care what anyone says, Rosalina sucks.
Kazuya. This guy actually used to be the main protagonist in the first Tekken game, but then he turned into a bad guy thanks to his evil father Heihachi, which further explains why hell has so many dads as if we really needed another example. Kazuya's motivations are power, domination, vengeance, and to kill his father, which he came so close to doing that he actually believed he did it, which makes him a cold-blooded killer, even though he didn't actually technically finish the job. King K Rool. What kind of a carnivore would be cruel enough to steal an unnecessary amount of bananas from an ape? Well, King K Rool, that's who.
It's in his name, dingus, come on.
Unlike Bowser, he treats his minions terribly and even kidnapped Donkey Kong with the intentions of torturing and enslaving him. In fact, according to the developer Rare, the reason for stealing the banana horde was actually to starve DK so he could take his treehouse. I swear, this poor ape can't catch a break, no wonder he's a jerk. The only reason the Kremlings put up with all the Rool shenanigans in the first place is because they're afraid of him, and as if he wasn't evil enough, he's also consumed with revenge after the events of the first Donkey Kong Country game, which makes him pretty irredeemable. In fact, there's a pretty good chance he'd have been at the very bottom of the list if he ever actually killed anybody successfully, but thankfully for him, he's too incompetent to do that. Ridley. This flying dinosaur dragon-like space pirate, sadistic, bloodthirsty, and responsible for a whole lot of genocide, including the massacre of Colony K2L where Samus' mom was killed. There's literally not one good thing I could say about Ridley, and I think it's pretty obvious why he's evil. Dark Samus. Born from Phazon and being a reincarnation of the Metroid Prime organism, Dark Samus copies regular Samus' form and is far more ruthless. She kills anybody and anything that stands in the way of her absorbing more Phazon, and will even kill her own allies for more of it.
More.
She'll ignore space pirates as long as they don't try to fight her first, most likely so they'll cause more trouble for Samus, but otherwise she'll kill anything that crosses her path. She's a lot less maniacal and unpredictable in Metroid Prime 3 in favor of being more calm and collected, but the increased intelligence actually makes her more cold, ruthless, and, well, evil. While Ridley may cause a lot more destruction than Dark Samus, you kinda can't be too surprised when you look at what you're dealing with, but Dark Samus on the other hand is a little more evil in my opinion for posing as a good person. Sephiroth. Like many great video game villains, Sephiroth started off as a pretty good guy. He kept to himself and was always professional, but once he found out he was born as a result of wacky science experiments involving the cells of an alien life form called Genova, he had a bit of a hissy fit and became a ruthless, cold-blooded killing machine with a god complex. His ultimate goal is to carry out Genova's will of wounding the planet, and to do that, he's gotta summon a meteor that'll kill everybody just so he can merge with the Mako life stream that the planet will use to heal itself so he can become a god.
Yeah, and I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you pesky kids.
Oh yeah, and one of his favorite pastimes is torturing Cloud, so, you know, that's considerably evil too. I won't spoil a game from 1997, but to top it all off, Sephiroth's also responsible for one of the saddest moments in video game history, at least at the time anyway, which is why he damn near made it to the very bottom of the list. Ganondorf. Other villains may be as evil as this bloke, but nobody in Smash Bros. Even comes close to being evil for as long as Ganondorf has. He's the reincarnation of the pure evil Demon King Demise, so some would say that he never really had a choice in the matter, but like I said earlier, Kirby was also born from evil and he turned out to be pretty great, so Ganon's got no excuses seeing as how he's had at least 15 chances to change his toxic lifestyle. I mean, you'd think that after trying to conquer Hyrule for centuries and getting your ass whooped by so many different reincarnations of the same person that you would have learned your lesson, but nope, every time he gets the chance he goes right back to work.
Pretty sure that's not what Aaliyah had in mind when she wrote that song.
He may have never permanently succeeded, but whenever the Demon King even partially succeeds, Hyrule becomes a complete mess, and it's always up to Link to clean it all up.
I don't clean. I'm not clean. Okay? I don't clean. I'm not clean. Okay? You clean it up.
Just about every villain has, or at least used to have, one redeeming quality, including Sephiroth, but Ganondorf has and always will be pure evil.
But anyway, there you have it, the full Smash roster judged from top to bottom by somebody who has no business doing so in the first place, given my track record of tomfoolery. And look, with there being over 100 different characters on the roster, with more than 600 people on planet Earth, there's no way in HE single hockey stick that any two people are going to judge every character in the exact same order, so just keep that in mind before you pants me on sight next time you see me in public. But anyway, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go relocate to another country for ripping the concept off from WickedBinge, at least until the statute of limitations runs out anyway. So in the meantime, you might want to check out my video series where Atlas makes me cut a broken Persona Q cartridge in half for a download code.
Hired goons!
Oh no, the hired goons are here already. I'd better escape with some cheap special effects. Ah!
It actually looked real.
So I want to say thank you to your loyalty, thank you for your support.